We are really excited. This is our second Educational Disruptors event. A little bit of context, when we started our School of Education here in Sacramento, we started 4 years ago that we brought education here to Sacramento from our Stockton campus. We wanted an opportunity to really rethink what a School of Education could be. So we have multiple sectors participating. We have lots of students here tonight from all kinds of walks of life. And we also wanted to really examine people that were doing different kinds of things in education. We didn't want to just focus on the way things had always been, but we wanted to focus on people who were shaking it up. So we started the Educational Disruptor series last year, and we are very excited tonight to have Gina Lujan and Ullrich, the founders of the Hacker Lab, with us here tonight. So let's give them a round of applause and welcome them. So the format for this series is it's basically an interview opportunity for them to tell their story. I'm just here to act important, and they're going to do all the heavy lifting. And at the end of our conversation, we'll give the audience an opportunity to ask questions. So if you've got something burning, just kind of keep that towards the end, and we'll make sure to give you an opportunity. Okay. So instead of giving a big long introduction about what the Hacker Lab is, I'd like to just start asking both of you to just tell us how did this whole thing get started, and how did you get to where you are today?
Well, we started about 6.5 years ago. We actually started as a small community group. We had it was actually started with a Craigslist ad. Came from Berkeley, had some co-working experience background, wanted to do the same thing here, couldn't find a space that was what I was looking for. And so I put an ad on Craigslist, and it said, hackers, founders, and enthusiasts have an idea to open a hacker space here. You know, how can we, looking for people to help, don't have money, but have the talent and have the equipment. And our first co-founder was Charles, and he helped identify a building in Curtis Park. So we were actually above Pangea. It's a brewery in Curtis Park, and we started doing meetups there. And that's how we met Eric. And Eric was with another organization called SARTA, and we started working together and building this awesome community together. And our meetups got bigger, and our meetups got bigger. And we started to see that we had something thriving here. And the meetups turned into a community, a grassroots community. And our lease was up, and we ended up all looking for a building together. So all of these people that we became friends with, we actually started basically house hunting with them. It was Eric and myself, and it was like first like 2 people, then it was like 6 people, and then one time there was like 13 people. And we were like, the realtor was like, you guys are all here to see a building? We're like, yes. And so it was like a community effort. So the location that we have on 1715 I Street was actually picked out by a bunch of us. And when we got the keys, we all ran in like we were like kids in a clubhouse. And that's pretty much how it started. And Eric can talk to you about how the programming started and how we started formulating our concept. But that's how it was started, just basically by a grassroots effort and making friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we started out, we didn't have a business plan, and we didn't have any money or any investors. What we had was passion, and we had a community. And that initial group of people that were coming together in these meetup groups, they were coming around together to focus on entrepreneurship, technology, learning new things, but really like just kind of busting through their traditional pathways to create something new. And that was the common thread that brought us together. It was definitely more passion than like we had a strategic plan for what we were actually doing. We just knew we wanted to do something different, and we had that real strong desire. And I could say, you know, being honored as a featured disruptor is like a great honor for us, because that definitely was our intent in the early days, to disrupt education, to disrupt the status quo in a lot of ways, whether it's the status quo of, you know, starting a new business or learning a skill like computer programming. We knew that, and a lot of our coming from personal experiences, trying to learn new things, that traditional education methods are just not right for everyone. um, or in all situations. And so that was one of the key things that Hacker Lab offered, was that community environment where we can learn together. And I think we'll just leave it at that for now. We can dig more into what that means.
So right now today, uh, how many locations does Hacker Lab have, and then what's your membership look like? What's that community that started with a few people look like today?
Oh, we have 3 locations now, and we're always constantly getting invited to go to other cities and other partnerships. And we're actually partnered with the Community College Chancellor's Office for the state of California as well. And our membership, Eric has all the stats, but we've grown exponentially, and we actually can't even believe that we're here. It's been a long journey and a lot of learning along the way, but we do expect ourselves to keep on growing and going as time goes on.
Yeah. So we have 3 locations in the area: Sacramento, Rockland, and Rancho Cordova. So we kind of have a triangle there of accessibility. We have over 70-ish classes a month across those 3 facilities. Just today alone, there's classes, about 4 or so classes happening this evening. And as far as membership goes, there's a lot of different ways to slice that. We have individual paying members, and then we have different programs that run membership. And you don't have to be a member to take the class and participate in our programs. And so, there's over 700 registered members in our system right now, and then several thousand unique class attendees per year. So we have now 14 employees, and we have about 25-ish independent contractors who are teachers that teach different classes for us.
So what are some of the, we'll dig into more how you got there, but what are some of the educational offerings you guys have right now?
So a lot of our education, Hacker Lab, we weren't trying to replace traditional education by any means. It's really to support the self-learner and to support that initial kind of deep dive, and then also to provide an exploratory environment or a discovery environment where you can get hands-on experience in a wide range of subject areas. You don't have to worry about prerequisites. You don't have to sign up for an 18-week semester. You can just kind of go in, take a 3-hour intro crash course on a variety of subjects. And so for tonight, for example, we have an intro. It's a lot of fabrication and prototyping classes tonight. Intro to laser cutting, intro to wood shop. We have intro to CNC milling machine out of our Rancho facility. I think we have a TIG welding class tonight. So those are, we have a bunch of tools that turned into prototyping and entrepreneurship by making things is a big part of what we do. Tomorrow night is the final night of our entrepreneurship boot camp. It's called Startup Hustle, which is an 8-week program to help you go from idea to minimum viable prototype, going through the design thinking process. So in general, it's like technology, fabrication, and entrepreneurship are like the categories that we focus our classes on.
And if you've got people that just start saying, hey, we want this, is that kind of how it works? You let the community kind of drive the courses?
What we've grown into is basically by the needs of the community, and we find that when you open spaces like this, community-driven spaces are the most successful, and you're able to actually help your local community by offering what they're looking for. And so that's been kind of our secret, is just by working with our community and allowing them to work with us as well to develop our programming, and also even just the energy and the settings in the space.
So talking a little more about the space, especially the space you guys have in Sacramento and Rockland. You talk about all these machines. I've been back there, and it's almost intimidating. Like, there's machines I'd never seen before that take up like half this room. So how did you kind of figure out that was a need, and how did you figure out how to buy those things? And how do you get from people talking about we want to make stuff to having this amazing facility with everything you can think of?
initially it is by community need. When we've had our very first meetup, there was like 30 or 40 people in a room, which is a large setting for a first meetup. And coming from the Bay Area, the hacker spaces that I was involved in, the co-working spaces I was involved in, was very, very software focused, very, very coding focused. So I went in with that, with those lenses, that it was going to be a software, web development, app development space. And then people started talking, and they were saying things that I never even heard of myself. I never heard of an oscilloscope. I didn't know what a drone was. I didn't know these guys had and girls had garages filled with electronic equipment, and they were building things. And I was like, and that's how we knew that the space was going to become what they wanted it to be. And it's evolved since then. That was actually one of the things that we decided that evening, is like, let's talk about what you see the space looking like. Let's dream about that. And it's just evolved along the way. And Eric can tell you a lot more about how we got our equipment, but it's been sourced by various different sources, including our own money, but also with partnerships. When we first started, we were like a bad news bears makerspace. We didn't have a lot of equipment. We were very scrappy. We pulled stuff off of Craigslist. I think out of alleys, there was furniture. We didn't have much. And so it's really exciting to see all the things that we have. You want to talk about?
That's good.
Yeah.
So thinking about this idea that community should drive education. We're in a system, whether we're talking K-12 or higher education, where it's very policy driven, very much focused on set outcomes that have kind of been set in stone for hundreds of years. How do you make a system like that turn to really value the user more, as you guys have done? Or do you not? Do you do everything outside of that system?
Well, yeah, education is just, there's so many aspects to it, right? And I can say, as we're growing, a lot of the things that I really didn't like about the traditional education systems, now we're setting up our systems, and you need reliability. We're coordinating dozens of teachers and students. Learning about the logistics of that gives me a lot more appreciation for the traditional education systems, because it's like now I'm finding ourselves, we need a curriculum committee. We need like all of these things, and it makes sense in a lot of ways, and so it's like we're looping back towards that. I'll leave it at that for now, but I appreciate the traditional education systems a lot. And then, can you remind me what your question was?
So kind of, how do you make sure you stay, as you implement these systems, how do you make sure you stay focused on your user instead of on policy? And I know you guys are using grants now. How do you make sure you don't get looped into where that controls you instead of your community?
Well, it's community. Our classes really, when classes stop selling, we take them off the calendar. And then when we want to test out a new class, we put it on the calendar and see how it sells. And then if people don't sign up for it, we look at the data behind that. How many people viewed the page? What was the title of the class? How long was the class? What days of the week were the class? How much did it cost? What was the description? What was the image? There's all these data points. It's like data-driven decision making. And so you could take an intro to 3D printer class, and you can spin it in dozens of ways. And one of those ways might not resonate, but another way might. But it is very much listening to that feedback from the community, the data points that you're receiving, that's driving whether or not it's going to work. And how do you do that? It's just like a scientific method, and it's constantly, every month, iterating on that, looking at the data and then making adjustments. So, yeah.
So have you started to partner a lot with traditional education systems, and maybe you can talk about some of those partnerships. Before I ask a question, maybe what are some of the partnerships you now have with some traditional education systems?
Well, our strongest partnership with traditional education is through Sierra College. Our second location was the result of a partnership with Sierra College. And it's a very cool and interesting partnership. where we are supportive of people entering Sierra College, which is a discovery tool where people can learn about Sierra College pathways. But then as a Sierra College student, you come and use the space, and it can support your education, it can support your classroom environment, give you a place to meet with students and meet with the rest of the business community and practice or work on what's in the classroom, and then ultimately kind of exit Sierra College and have a stepping stone into the private sector, a job, or another four-year college. Um, and so that's our biggest partnership in the education space is with Sierra College right now.
So where do you feel like traditional education still has a place? Where do you guys have a place? How do you work together with those two things?
I think that traditional education is extremely important. I think that we help in a way of being more supportive. I think there's different ways that we can identify um, how students can identify where they fit into the educational system. So you can come to Hacker Lab and discover that you have a desire to be an engineer, or maybe you want to be a fashion designer, and you come there and you take one of our sewing classes, and maybe you'll go into a class at Sierra College because we've seen that happen. Or maybe we've had students have had majors in design, set design, and in drama, and have come back and actually become one of the best engineers at Hacker Lab and went and got jobs at Instructables on Pier 39 and
Pier 39, yeah.
Pier 39 in San Francisco. So I think that we're more of a supportive role for the traditional educational system, and that we can be leveraged in that kind of way. Also, we're a little bit more nimble. So that's why we work with the community colleges, because we can do a lot of things outside of that bureaucracy and be more experimental, and also give the students real life experience. So I think it kind of works in tandem, and that's what we strive for when we're partnering with different schools. The thing that was so awesome about our partnership with Sierra College is that we were the first space in the nation to have a private-public partnership with a college, a community college, and a makerspace. And so that was really a very positive thing. It turned into a white paper, and that actually led into $16 million of funding for the community colleges to have a competitive grant across the state. Now there's 21 or 22 maker spaces, and Eric is actually designing curriculum for the digital badges to be introduced into those maker spaces. So we can actually say that we've been a big part of how education has been disrupted in community colleges.
Great. So we've talked a little bit about how you guys fill a community need with education, how you connect with traditional systems like community college. How about industry? When do you have industry connect with you guys directly because they're missing something and they see a void that you guys can help fill?
Well, industry, and so everybody that comes to Hacker Lab, ultimately, they're going to use the tools to make money in some way or another. And we have a lot of members or people who have freelance businesses. You come in, you gain a new skill, and then you have access to tools, and you can use it to make money. So industry, could be very small. It could be a small company, and then it could also be very large. You look at the region here. There's a big need for CNC machinists, and so we understand that from a high level economic reporting that there's a big need for CNC machinists, and so you kind of respond to that. But there's no real secret sauce behind that. It's just we have CNC machine tools, and we teach classes on how to use them, and then we give a place for people to practice using them. And yeah, it's just listening to the customer type of scenario.
So do you feel it's important to kind of make sure that students they learn the skill, but they have to go out and do the work themselves to land the job? Or do you have any more direct kind of partnerships with industry that maybe is more of a connected pathway?
Right now, we don't. And I don't know if Hacker Lab specifically will, or if we partner with a large number of organizations that do, or maybe we start prototyping certain areas that have that and partner with other So Hacker Lab is very much a community. Like, we work with all sorts of different organizations that do different things. So, for example, we have a meeting tomorrow with the Sacramento Urban Tree Foundation, and they have a workforce development program to teach people woodworking, because what they do is they rescue fallen trees, they mill them into usable product, then you can make a table out of it. Well, they don't have enough trained people that can actually do that fabrication work, right? So we're partnering with them like that. So I guess what I'm saying is we'll work with all sorts of different organizations, SVM, manufacturing organizations, things like this Urban Tree, which is like a random one, all sorts of other youth-focused organizations, STEM-focused initiatives. We have something going on with the cybersecurity in the state. And we just say yes to partnerships and see how we can connect dots and like help make something happen. That's really kind of what our motto.
So we have some, I know we have in the audience some potential founders, people who are wanting to start projects and ideas like this. How do you start to make those connections? Do you just send out emails? Do you pick up the phone? I know now you guys have a big enough reputation where people are probably contacting you, but how did you start off in those early days, kind of finding partnerships or finding people you can work with?
I for myself, I'm a wallflower, and so I like to put myself actually in forced group settings where I go out to meetups and meetings, and I have to go and meet people. So that's really how I got started, is getting out there and just meeting people and being in environments where there's like-minded people sharing ideas. Workable groups are really well. We like people to come to our space during our meetups and get to know each other. We have meetups for all different types of things. You could come on down to any meetup, they're free, and just introduce yourself and find a category or a topic that you're interested in and just get in there and meet people.
Yeah, I think especially in the early days with Gina, she would just be like relentless. And I remember she would send out emails to like our hundreds of people, and it was like a handwritten personal email, just like constantly being and kind of sending that message. And I think that through sending those initial newsletters that she was doing, a lot of people started to follow, and it just had that personal touch, and it was just that relentlessness. And now I look at it, and people are kind of pitching us a lot, and the ones that actually like get to us, like, I mean, you know, we get pitched a lot of different things, and it's the ones that are relentless. You have to almost be shamelessly relentless. Don't worry about their feelings. Don't worry about my feelings. Like, if you really want to get in front of me about something, just keep emailing, keep sending, show up to the space, call, and that's how you do it. You just have to be relentless.
You know, you just set yourself up for hundreds of
Yeah.
emails, right? That's,
Well,
It's Eric at hackerlab.org.
oh, thank
you. So knowing that both of you are really committed to the community you're building, and not necessarily super public, as you step into this role and you've got to do a lot of publicity, a lot of marketing, what's that adjustment been like? And how do you brand Hacker Lab? Because it was interesting when we started talking to people about we're having Hacker Lab as educational disruptors. People, wait, how do they do education? We're like, that's what they do. But so how do you kind of sell your message to the public? How does that work?
Well, we give them a description of a hacker, which is described from MIT's description, which is a hacker is someone that provides that creates a creative solution to solve a problem. So that's actually the original term of hacker, is to have a creative solution to solve a problem. And so that's usually like the message when people say, "Oh my God, hacker!" And when we first started, that was basically what we faced, was the negative connotation behind the word hacker, and we would make jokes about it, and I'd send memes out and stuff into the meetup groups. But now we're here. A lot of people, we have a lot of friends, and I think our messaging is okay now. I don't know. What do you think, Eric?
Well, we always are looking at everything that's wrong. Gina and I, you know, like we have to solve the problem. Like it's never good enough, you know. Um, so, you know, I feel like we have a long ways to go with really getting what our brand is and making that people understand what that is. We have a lot of challenges. We do a lot of things, but you know, we have ideas around, like, you know, it's like you come to Hacker Lab, and it's also who's your customer. We have different brand focus for the different customer base. So we have consumers and we have large organizations as well, and we kind of have different messages for the different people. Um, so, um, you know, I think we have some work to do with our branding, honestly.
Yeah,
Not gonna lie. But and you know, you look at Hacker Lab, we have co-working, we have classes, we have maker space, we have these different things, and you know, we're not a co-working space. And that was one thing in the early days, especially the last 4 years, we were like, we are not a co-working space. And we've really taken a strong focus on the education as what we do, and been working on the education and the makerspace side of things to really try and differentiate us from what the other co-working spaces in the region are. But you know, yeah, at the end of the day, we're Hacker Lab, and that just kind of says like we're doing different things in its own. And you know, I mean, I think that's the essence of the brand, and whatever it, you know, it kind of trickles down from there.
we hack stuff.
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
hack stuff.
we hack education, we hack business, we just hack things, and that's what we do. We're hackers. And Northrop Grumman, we opened an innovation space for Northrop Grumman. If you're familiar with Northrop Grumman, they're the world's largest military production company, and they let us on their campus. You know, like so. So you know, it must not be that bad. So
Branding is, you know, it is interesting. We have a long ways to go with our branding. We're a 7-year-old company. You look at these established brands like Nike and Apple, and you know, how did they get there? And you know, we're a small business in Sacramento. We've been around for 7 years, and but I think we're onto something, but we're just at the barely getting started with what's possible with branding and people understanding what the maker movement is all about, and you know what Hacker Lab is all about. Yeah.
So you talked about starting off. You just let it take you where it went. From where you are now, what's kind of the next step, either in education or for Hacker Lab as a whole? Where do you guys see yourself going? Is it still just trying things out and testing prototypes and seeing what works and what doesn't? Are there specific things you're focused on now? What's kind of the future look like?
Oh, we talk about that a lot. I think one is just remaining sustainable and being relevant in technology, and the environment is changing so quickly. So just keeping up with the pace and continuing to grow and to be sustainable and to be relevant and to be useful to our community. I know from myself personally, I'm very excited that we're actually getting more into more of the inclusive economic development. That's my passion. And now we're starting to, we now have the capacity as a business to be able to give back and to be able to do more of those things. So we have a program, and I'll have Eric talk about it, but we're rolling out this year. And that's really, we want to do more good work like that. And we did it before, but now now that we have some legs, you know, we've got our big boy pants on, we can do a lot, and we're grounded a lot more here in the region and at the table a lot more. We're able to do a lot more good work. And I'd like to see us continue down that path and to help, you know, disadvantaged and at-risk youth and the disenfranchised.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna get into that. I do think we've stumbled on, or we've settled on a core product now, a core class offering, a kind of a core thing where we're pretty solid. We're at the point now where we're scheduling our programming through June 2019. We've got it pretty much locked in now, what we're going to do and how it's going to do, and that's orchestrating like 40 different teachers in different ways. And we know what our core value proposition is and our core customer base that keeps the thing sustainable. There will definitely always be and continue to be experimentation in different areas. And we're excited about some stuff. One of the programs that Gina's talking about, we're calling it's the Pathways program, and it's focused on serving um, people that otherwise wouldn't be able to afford a Hacker Lab membership. Um, a 8-month scholarship, kind of a guided cohort scholarship program, where they get 8 months of membership into Hacker Lab. They get access to a bunch of different classes and mentorship and support. And really, the focus is on discovering new possibilities across all of the different tools and resources and classes you have, and then getting hands-on learning experience across those. And so the pathways for us, the 3 pathways for success, are starting up a small business or a freelance business, pursuing a new job, getting a job, or enrolling in a college program. And so it's like a pathways discovery and hands-on learning experience scholarship program that just launched 2 weeks ago. It'll be an 8-month cohort. We got 60 people enrolled in it. And we're going to do that at least once a year. We're going to have a cohort, and we're looking at growing that across our different facilities.
So that's a great segue into my next question. Knowing that Facebook and Google recently came out and said they're no longer requiring college degree for hired employees, do you think that in technology space, but also in the making space, do you see a more of a push towards skills and portfolios than degrees, credentials? What have you kind of seen with your own community as they've been seeking improvement in their own jobs or starting their own spaces? Is that the future, you think, is the end of formal education?
I don't believe it's the end of formal education. I think there's still going to be a need for specialized education, and I do believe that there will always be a place for higher education, but there are specific industries that it's not necessary to at least enter and to be able to grow into that by having a portfolio of skills. MIT now has a portfolio-based application process as opposed to you giving them, your resume and all of the credentials. They want to see what you can do. And Eric can touch more on that, but I believe there's always going to be a role for higher education, but in specific industries. Technology is a little bit of freedom in so many ways.
Yeah, it's really about what your portfolio is, and that's what the type of environment that Hacker Lab creates, is so you can learn by doing. That's where you learn by making mistakes, you learn by trying new things, you learn by getting out of your comfort zone, and then you've got a portfolio of things that you've created, and that's your resume, that's your street cred. So
my big takeaway from that is Dr. Githens, we got to keep our jobs. Apparently higher education is not going away, so we're good for a little while at least. So I guess kind of like an ending question, talking to some of the people out in the audience who are trying to disrupt education, whether through the traditional system in classrooms, whether they're trying to change the models, any advice to them on how you start that work and how you move it forward, especially times I'm sure you guys have felt super frustrated, felt like nothing was moving forward. How do you keep going?
I think being rebellious there's a lot to that. I think kind of going against the grain is always important. And then also just being experimental is important. And there's no replacement for actual hands-on learning and actual real life work experience, not theoretical learning, but actual getting your hands dirty and getting out there and doing it. And I think that's what Hacker Lab offers, is that real life, real world, hands-on, gritty learning experiences. And if you could bring that into the classroom, I would highly recommend that, because that's really what we need in today's workspace. And then also to have, there's a big need for the third space person, which is a person that's multifaceted, that knows some design and also knows a little bit of engineering and is also a coder. And then they bring all those talents together so they can be the ultimate problem solver. That's what companies are looking for, and that's what's needed in today's entrepreneurship world. So if you could do some of those things, I think it would be quite successful.
Can you restate the question?
Sure. How do these guys,
How do you get started?
how do they do something, not
you get
what
started?
Hacker Lab has done, but how do they
Yeah.
find success in their own spheres of influence?
Well, you got to it starts with you, starts with yourself, identifying, why you're doing it. And if that feeling is really strong, you kind of just stick with it. And then from there you find some friends. You start reaching out to who your users are, who your customer is, who the key stakeholders are in whatever that mission of yours is, and you start selling them. You start selling right away, and as cheaply and quickly as possible. And you learn from that really quickly what sells and what doesn't, and you build off of that, if that makes sense. You can learn more about that at startuphustle.io.
Sign up for class. So just kind of to finish, just thinking back to that first meetup. You'd come from the Bay Area, you're trying to figure out how you could have a community in Sacramento. Did you foresee this? And what are your takeaways from just like something so simple as a Craigslist posting to what you've been able to build?
Amazing. This has been like one of the greatest journeys of my life personally. And what I learned, because most of my life I've been a sole proprietor, a solo entrepreneur. And what I learned so much was the power of community and the power of people. And that in order to make great things happen, you need a team. And I'm so grateful for the people that are around me. And I would never have imagined this, but really, if you can embrace people and get in a huddle, you can do great things.
Yeah, I think, especially with Hacker Lab being so ingrained in different aspects of the community, it's about support and recognizing how much community support there is. It is so deeply interwoven into every aspect of what we do, and every business really. There's support out there if you're doing something that matters, and that's what you have to you listen for, and you see every day, and you respond to that support that's out there, because that's the foundation of all of this. And so that was one of the key things you learned, especially as we've grown. And things, you take on new leases, you take on new liabilities. It's scary. But then you ask yourself, why are you doing this? And then you see the support out there in different levels. And that's how you know that you're not in it alone, And that's been really powerful for this last couple of years.
Great. Well, thank you both for that. And I'd like to open it up to any questions from our audience for Eric and Gina.
You talked about design thinking, prototyping, learn by doing. It's obvious that it's really integral to Hacker Lab. So I'm curious about how intentional you were to use design thinking as you were developing the organization itself. Is that something you thought about at the time?
Go ahead.
Go ahead and answer.
I learned about design thinking and lean startup about 6 months prior to Hacker Lab, and it would been something that had been just like 2012. Like, in my opinion, we were very much lean startup from the beginning. We built our community. It started on Meetup.com. Like, I think it's $40. And by the
$40
40 something dollars a year
for a year,
$40 a year, and you have a meetup.com, and you have the message out there, and we did our classes and our first events at bars and coffee shops, and then so we had these customers lined up, customers, right, members, people, community supporters, but they're customers. And so that's what Gina was saying. We went shopping for our first location. we had already had all of the offices rented before we signed the lease. And that's really the lean startup methodology. And so actually how we paid the rent, we didn't have any money. We collected first and last month's rent from all of these members, took that money, paid the down payment on the lease, and that's how we got in. Yeah, we were very lean startup from the beginning, and that was something I remember kind of being proud of in the very early days.
I'm curious about your guys' partnerships that you have with schools. You say you have a partnership with Sierra College. Do you ever see yourself having a partnership with like a K-12 institution, almost like an outsource for elective classes, or some sort of partnership with high schools?
And talk about Sacmaker Academy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We definitely are doing some stuff in different ways with K-12 system. You know, K-12, there's the homeschool programming and other, you know, at-risk youth type of programming, and then there's the traditional public school K-12, and you know, we keep them separate. At Hacker Lab, and then there's after-school programming as well. So at Hacker Lab, we actually have an organization called Sacmaker Academy that operates within our facility, and they are vendors with several different homeschool programs throughout Sacramento, and they can use, so people come in and out and use those vendor credits to take classes through them. And their whole mission is very much maker education. You get your high school proficiency, et cetera. And then traditional K-12 schools, a lot of them are starting to set up maker spaces. They're converting their libraries into maker spaces. They're doing different things. And we're supportive in a different way for them. A lot of times they'll get a membership at our space and take a bunch of classes, and then we'll just provide advice and support in different ways. But they'll come in, and I know Valley High, and there's been a couple other high schools that have gotten memberships for a couple of their teachers, taken all of our classes, and learn how we structure the operation, and then you know, set that up over there.
We also have a sister program, and myself and my co-founder, we have an organization called Code for Hood, and we go into disadvantaged and disenfranchised neighborhoods, and we actually do STEM programming there. So we have like weekend hackathons. We also do after school and summer school programs. We just finished doing a migrant farm worker after school program and summer program in Woodland. So we have that programming as well. And that's specifically just geared to disadvantaged youth.
And Rob Calvert, the founder of the Maker Academy, is one of the professors in our program. So
Oh, that's
yeah,
awesome.
we're trying to.
He's awesome. He would be a great person for this.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
great.
I was curious about your thoughts on Sacramento. What brought you here? What makes us different? I moved from the Bay Area along when the first .com moved, and kind of fell in love with Sacramento, but it took a while. So I was just kind of curious what brought you here, and what do you think about Sacramento and how it interfaces with what you're doing?
You want me to be honest? Yeah, okay. Well, when I first started, I'm actually spent most of my life here. So I moved here when I was 14. I'm from Los Angeles, and I'm 46. So I spent about 30 years here, and but I moved to the Bay Area for about 4 years, and the reason I moved there was for personal reasons. But I know that prior to that, I had one of the first design companies here, web design companies here in Sacramento, and then I also owned a mortgage company. And for myself, during that time in the mid-2000s, doing business in Sacramento, being a person of color, being ethnic, not having a degree. I actually have a 7th grade education, and not being polished, I was a little rough around the edges. People would come into my mortgage office, and I'd had my nose pierced and my eyebrow pierced. So I was a little rough around the edges, and it was a very conservative town at that time. So I had a specific clientele, but it was very hard for me to do business. There was a lot of prejudices, a lot of biases, very cliquey, and so when I went to the Bay Area, I experienced the same thing. So I went to the Bay Area. I was in the tech. I was during the beginning of kind of the tech boom there, the new startup era. But I was fortunate enough to be able to have met a couple good friends that I didn't have them meet the same prejudice. Actually, I ran into the startup bro syndrome when I went to the Bay Area. So not coming from Facebook or not coming from Google, and having a Windows and not a Mac. I actually had some people actually walk away from our table and say they weren't going to be on our hackathon because I didn't have a MacBook, and we won. So, so take that. But I made good friends, and I was able to learn a lot, and I'm very grateful for that, because what I learned there, I brought back here. I'd opened one of the first co-working spaces in Berkeley, and I was kind of in the middle of like Occupy movement and the beginning of the startup stuff. So, and when I came back, it was like a breath of fresh air, because there was this new surgence of business. It was the beginning of this, kind of in the beginning of the Renaissance. And there were all these amazing leaders that are sitting at the table in our region ready to make change. And we got like here at the right time. We started at the right time, and we were involved in the conversations. And I'm really optimistic now about Sacramento. I love the community. I love the people I work with. I love our cohort group of people that work regionally to try to make this place a better place, relentlessly. They're so dedicated. So it's like night and day from my initial. I left here like literally hating Sacramento. Like I hated it. I'd be in Bay Area just bad mouthing it all day long. I hated it. Like I could throw darts from there. It was bad. But now that I'm back, I mean, I've been back here for almost 7 years now, and I love it. It's a great change here.
Gina, I have a question for you in regards to leadership. You mentioned a little bit about the struggles of being a minority.
Yes.
In business. How did you manage to continue to motivate, inspire, and lead this startup? Because obviously you guys didn't have very much money in the beginning. People were doing it because they were passionate about it. What did you do, or did you have a vision that you kind of saw the bigger picture and kind of helped mobilize everybody and kept everybody motivated? And there wasn't much to start off.
I think my stint in the Bay Area, that's when I actually realized that those things were happening to me in Sacramento. Like it was like a big wow, because the Bay Area was when I moved there was so diverse, and those biases and prejudices weren't really there from that aspect, from racial demographic or from gender. So I kind of had a different outlook. And so when I came back here, it was almost, not that it was non-existent, I just didn't pay attention to it. I didn't look at it as a roadblock. And then, I think in the last 7 years, I've had like one instance where somebody was like, kind of like, hello, little lady, and like bypassed me and went straight to Eric. And actually twice. The first time is when we did the group tour, and they were like, and the realtor said, who's in charge? And one of our things said, one of our members said, her. And he went, her? And he was like, yeah, her. And it was, and and then the second time was when me and Eric were out in Woodland, and I just kind of scoffed at it. They literally like walked past me and like shook his hand, and I didn't take it personally. I took it more of like a sign of ignorance, and the key word in ignorance is ignore. So I ignored it and just said, these are your friends, you deal with them and just get the money. So, and I'm very fortunate. We have a really great community and really supportive people. Since we started, we literally had like government and organizations and people knocking on our door saying, how can we help you? So I can honestly say that we've struggled, but we've had a lot of help along the way. So we're very fortunate.
Speaking of government and struggle, how do you handle opportunities in regards to people that are trying to push policy and product at the same time to support the policy? Are there any initiatives that you guys are linked up with, or economic development projects to help entrepreneurs or social entrepreneurs that are trying to force change for education reform?
What do you think about that in Startup Hustle? Is there anything like that we have?
Well, I mean, Gina's on the board of the Metro Chamber and some other stuff. Like, we're on a lot of boards.
Yeah, we're on a lot of boards. We're on Inclusive Economic Development Board, and he's on a WIB board.
I'm on WIB board, the Mayor's Tech Council board.
So we have a lot of conversations about policy and the importance of small business, and then social entrepreneurship. We always support that. Behind policy, we don't have anything specific. We just support people that want to do really cool things and try to give them a platform and a space that they can do it economically. Because Hacker Lab's a very affordable place, and it's a very open, kind of open source, open doors kind of place. And I think that's a good groundwork for somebody who wants to come in and do that kind of work.
So the second half of the question would be, do you have ever situations where you have your students that have, your members that have completed your programming and now they have this wealth of experience as far as the learning piece, but they need more hands-on? Do they ever have like job vacant opportunities for them to be able to get their feet wet with taking on projects to explore and help people with launching and getting compensated for development?
Yeah, so we don't have a direct employment pathways, but we do have a lot of companies that actually hire within our space. So we have it's a company called techies, and they develop their whole product at Hacker Lab, and they've hired most of their employees from Hacker Lab, from Sierra College, who were students, and from the local WIB. But they sourced their original team pretty much from our Hacker Lab community. So just by being there, they were able, and through just osmosis and interjecting yourself in the community, there's lots of opportunities for when you come there and learn, and then moving on with different opportunities, whether it be you have a startup partner or you do have an opportunity to start in other jobs. But we see a lot of people working together. You're welcome.
So you guys talked a lot about how Hacker Lab can supplement traditional education really effectively. What about when you take something like the California community college system, where folks who are graduating aren't necessarily graduating with the skills needed by employers, and the 2-year cycle makes it very difficult for something like the California community college system to update their programming, for example. How do you guys become more than a supplement and really affect system change, for example, through the community colleges?
We're working on it. It's a hard problem. I mean, it's a hard problem.
I know one thing that you guys have talked about is one of the issues in a lot of these spaces is it's the instructors don't have the skills, right? So, one thing you guys have talked with community colleges about, you've talked with us about, is how do you develop something that can get more of the instructors at community colleges and higher ed with hands-on skills? Because a lot of them, they just kind of got an academic degree and then went into teaching, and they never really had the application.
We also face the competitiveness of it too. So it's a fine line we walk. So to be in partnership with the college and try to be nimble and offer classes that are outside of the college, but then also not trying to not be viewed as competition with the schools as well. So it's a very fine line for us. So we're, like Eric said, we're working on it, but it's a tough conversation when you're working with large bureaucracy like the community college system.
And one thing with Hacker Lab, so at any given of our Hacker Labs, you will find a wide range of people, from professional engineers who are working on technology products, to youth, to community college students, to freelance web developers, all within the same facility. And that's one thing I think, at Sierra College, even at the Midtown location, as a college graduate or a college student, just being there, interfacing, mixing and mingling in an environment like that, you make new connections. And that is really where a lot of the connections between industry and the education kind of happens just by osmosis. It just happens organically. And that's the type of space that we create. Yeah.
Take one more question. One last question.
Just based on what you just said there, I was thinking about mentorship, because you're basically creating a scenario where you're encouraging different people with different levels of expertise to mentor each other. Is that something that you're seeing happening frequently, and is it beneficial?
Absolutely. It happens frequently, quite a bit, organically. But we also have a little bit of structure now. We've got different office hour programs where you can actually sign up and book a 30-minute mentor slot with somebody as a computer programmer or CNC operator. So it makes it a little bit more user-friendly versus having to kind of just hang out at the space and get lucky. But both of those things happen a lot. Yeah.
What's the youngest person you have?
Well, the Sac Maker Academy,
It's like 10.
yeah, we try and say 12, but they bring in
sneak 'em in.
8-year-olds. They sneak in
They sneak
8-year-olds,
'em
I
in.
think.
They're little. So.
There's some little ones in there. I don't know how old they are, honestly. They should be 12.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you both for being here tonight. This has been awesome. Great questions from our audience as well. Let's give Gina and Eric a round of applause. And I do want to let everyone know, if you have any questions about the programs we offer here, like I said, we're trying to become educational disruptors ourselves. We have a table in the back. We have some people here who can talk with you, and we have tons of food. So please eat as much as you can tonight. And thank you for coming out. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.